how important is detoxing? What sort of things are maybe some of the best ways to do that? And you hear a lot about a spring detox or winters is something that we need to continually do, though, instead of just a seasonal thing.
Well, the seasonal stuff, and I have a old medical school friend who's written a book on this detoxing with the seasons. I think it's a refinement and it's beautiful, and yet on a more my approach would be different in this regard. That if we think that toxicity is an issue, right from the get-go, we take various steps to help people with toxicity. And sometimes it's a more gradual process. You don't want to throw someone into too vigorous a detox, because when we're talking about detox, we're talking about toxins that are deep in their cells, and even their bones and their brain. They're sequestered away there because the body realizes that these are poisonous, and the body places a high premium on not sending too much poison through the kidneys, which are very sensitive to poisons and can be damaged by it. So it sequesters it. A lot of these toxins are fat soluble, so they wind up in the fat tissue. And one of the major fat tissues in our body is our brain. There's a lot of fat in our brain, and you want to be awfully cautious about all of a sudden detoxing someone, because if you do it too rapidly, these toxins mobilize, are floating around in the blood, hitting the kidneys, and people get sick.
Okay.
So one of the cardinal basic rules in detoxing someone is you do so at a pace that their body can handle. And one of my views on that is, if they're getting sick in the process, if they're having a bad day, they just did a detox ritual, let's say a sauna, and they walked out of that sauna and they felt sick, too long, too much, too hot, something, we want to back them down so it's so gradual that they don't feel sick. When they walk out of the sauna, they went, that was nice, just as an example. So I like the basic rule is really what I'm beginning with is detoxify someone at a rate that their body can handle really well. You don't want to throw so many toxins out into the open that the liver's got more than it's capable of handling, and thus you make someone sick in the process. I know I'm lingering on this, but I hold it to be very important, because a lot of people make that mistake. They go too fast. We live in a let's get it done. We're Americans, let's get it done. And I used to do that as a young man. I want to go at it and let's really go for it. But I'm not that way anymore. And let's take it at the right pace. We can do it over 10 years if we need to. Now that's one principle. Another principle is, if you continue to take a toxin in, your body isn't in a detox mode. It's important to identify and stop the toxins. Number one source of toxicity is the air. So how's your air? So how's the air in the bedroom? How's the air where you work? Now some people are in good enough air environments and it isn't such a big issue, but I want to start with the basics, because that's the biggest molecule we take in. And how about the water? How's your water? And you know, there's so much impurities in the water. You and I could spend the rest of the time talking about water impurities. And the bottom line, it comes down to practical logistics. In our house, in my town, the purest water I could get comes from a state that's, 500 miles from my home. And it comes in glass bottles and it's delivered and it's costly, but that's the water we drink. It comes from a mountain spring, hopefully. That's what they say it does, and it sure tastes wonderful. So air, water, food. Oh boy. And a lot of people are really getting savvy about food, but also, and you know, if someone has got food habits that are probably not supporting health, the art is helping them make a transition to healthy food in a way that they can practically implement. So it's a humongous art form. This part of detoxification is moving from foods that contain herbicides, pesticides. This is some of the greatest amount of toxins are coming into this food, and it's not a small matter, and it's not a small matter for women, because it turns out so many of these chemicals that are used in producing our food supply happen to behave like hormones in their body. They're estrogenic. What a combination. So a lot of women have had a lot of trouble with this, and they have all kinds of symptoms from this. So it's a topic near and dear to one of the most important works that I'm doing. And so you've got to stop that toxin coming in. So basically what they got to do is move from the traditional supermarket diet to an organic diet. You got to go organic. And how easy is that to do? Well, it depends how motivated you are. It's real easy if you're motivated. And I think people have financial considerations, but boy, if you pay at the front end, or you're going to pay later. And the cost of paying later is astronomical compared to the slight increase in cost that you may pay in the beginning. So I place a heavy emphasis on making that transition. I help people do that. Sometimes we've walked people through the healthiest food store in their neighborhood and taught them how to change their shopping habits. And you got to let go of processed food. So you live like our cave people did. All they had was food that was grown from the ground and food they hunted, and it didn't have any. And you got to find your way. And so the biggest challenge is logistics in that regard, and then the recipes and the cooking of it. So we take the time. I've written a book on nutrition, shopping, cooking utensils, etc. And so to walk them through that practical process. And you don't want to push that, because if you give someone more than they can do, everyone's got busy lives. And if you push them faster than they can move, they're going to get discouraged. But I try and help them get headed in that direction, because once their commitment to heal has a few practical steps that they can handle, the whole vector of the direction of where they're moving changes from deteriorating to start turning the corner. So I'm not that often interested, oh, we got to get this done real fast. Sometimes we are. So the air, the water, the food, and then the house. Oh my goodness, there's so many stuff. But the thing is, so many of the things that we use to clean our houses, and I know you know all this, and you could go through your house and find 20 products that are toxic. Your soaps, your shampoos and conditioners. The good news is you can pare down the number of products that you use enormously. And we can use baking soda and vinegar to do so much of the cleaning, and it's so much purer. And just to name a few things. So it gets simpler and cheaper if you start cleaning out your house of all this Febreze and all these Glads and these odor counteractors and stuff. So this is the basic to detoxifying, is you stop the toxins coming in. And of course there can be toxins such as alcohol and too much coffee and cigarettes. I mean, you don't see that too much anymore, at least I don't in my practice. Stop them coming in. And then once all that is well underway, you look at their exercise program. Because if you can get them to sweat in a way that's practical for them, that's going a long way. Because if they're going to heat up and sweat, so many of these poisons are volatile. And if you get them to heat up, they're going to enter the bloodstream, and you'll breathe them out, or they'll sweat out your skin. And and you can see I have a bent towards the practical. What can people really implement? So if they're not exercising, if you can help them exercise in a proper way, where they're not hurting themselves, this is very crucial, and they're not trying to push themselves faster than their body is ready to go. But you start moving them in that direction, you start heating them up and sweating, you're not only helping their heart, their cardiovascular, their everything that's so important about exercise, they're starting to detoxify in that way. And then you get into the more esoteric things. And I don't know if you want me to go there, but heating up even more does a wonderful job. And one of the most practical things I've heard from the state we're in, if you just turn off your air conditioner in the summer, that house is going to heat up to 104 degrees. And it's one of the best temperatures and detoxifiers that there is. And if that doesn't work and you're not in where I come from, if you put a space heater in a bathroom and close the door, you can usually heat that room up to 104 degrees, or you put it in a closet, and you got a room that you're going to sweat in. And if you do that for 5, 10, 15 minutes, depends how fast, you don't want to heat up so much that you get a little sick or a little queasy in the process. That's going too far. And if you do that, that's an easy thing to implement. Now, the sophisticated end of that is something that costs a couple $1,000s, but it's a home infrared sauna, and this is probably the state of the art. But again, you don't have to go that far. And then if you're moving toxins, you want to drink a lot of pure water, because this stuff is mobilized, and you want to help it go through the kidneys, not highly concentrated, but plenty dilute, So we're into a big subject, and then there's liver cleanses, and very simple diets do wonderful liver cleanses. Like if you were to eat applesauce and steamed organic greens for 5 days, that liver would clean out in a way that you could actually feel it. It's a little stringent to do it, but I'm sort of racing through. We're moving into some of the more esoteric things, and there is one other thing I'd like to mention. A lot of people have trouble with heavy metals. Mercury from the mercury amalgams. Sometimes we have to make the decision to remove the mercury amalgams, lead, cadmium, and it takes a sophisticated, usually a medical doctor, who's interested in this field, and most holistic doctors have been exposed to it and know a lot about it. We do something called intravenous chelation, where we send in a safe chemical into the body through the veins, and it goes into these sequestered regions where these toxic metals have been sequestered, like the brain and like the fat tissue. Because if you just do a urine sample and looking for toxic metals, you're not going to see it. It's been stuffed away. It's not running through the kidneys. But if you send in a chelator that binds up that toxic metal and that product is safe to excrete, you're going to see it in the urine. So we do something called the challenge test. We use a couple substances to do it, EDTA or DMPS, and we'll see the toxic metals or not. If we see the toxic metals, there's slow ways to get them out that are perfectly honorable. Even some of these algae like chlorella, and there's certain biochemicals that one can take by mouth, DMSA and stuff, that you can remove a lot of these things depending what you got. But the state of the art is probably intravenous chelation.